What if your connection to the spirit world was closer than you think? What if your unique way of seeing the world is the key to connecting the two worlds? Welcome to a Sanctuary for the Soul podcast. Join us as we delve into the heart of spiritual development, from the practical guidance and mediumship to the best way to live a heart-based life.
We are here to facilitate healing, awaken your intuition, and help you navigate your path with confidence. Speaking from our own deep journeys, we've learned to experience the world and the spirit world with a unique sensitivity. This is our space to share that perspective with you. Let's explore the connection together.
Good morning, Liz.
Happy Easter, Andy.
Happy Easter Sunday. It is Easter Sunday as we record, and hopefully it'll be Easter Sunday that this goes out.
Yeah,
So if it
just
isn't,
in time.
so if it isn't, we apologise. And if it is, it was all meant to be. So how have things been?
Yeah. It's been a lot. It's been a lot. Yeah.
So life is complicated for many different reasons, but that's not something that isn't something that's happening to lots of other people.
Yeah.
And we kind of had a little think about what we want to speak about, and the theme or the title of today's episode is Facing the Truth, Head or Heart. So, what does that title mean to you?
So when you think about leading with the heart, it's much more of a felt experience. It's more of an emotional experience, isn't it?
Yeah, can
Because
be.
yeah, it can be. Because you're allowing almost like a knowing to answer the questions or lead the way. And what is a knowing? Well, most of the time it's a bodily felt experience, isn't it?
Is that the same as intuition?
I would say so. Yeah. I would say it's the same thing.
Bodily felt experience.
Like I experience it. So if I'm making a decision and if I decide to take my attention to the heart,
Yeah.
it's almost like a pull or a physical experience that then brings like an emotional experience as well. So maybe when you think about a decision or a choice or your next steps, if it brings that, when you're considering it, if it brings that feeling of upliftment and joy and excitement, and you sort of begin to trust that, don't you? Whereas when you're considering something, if it brings more of a feeling of, I don't know, I call it flatlining, where it's a bit like there's not a lot going on, or maybe a feeling of just, that feels a bit meh, then maybe it's not really the decision to make. But I think the tricky thing can be if you're allowing yourself to be led by the heart or the intuition, when fear gets in the way and confuses things, and that's often when the mind gets involved, isn't it?
Ah, right. Yes. I suppose because if you're going on feelings and then if you don't understand something, you can be fearful of it, can't you? Whereas when someone says, that's not actually really scary because have you considered this perspective of that situation? And then you look at it and then suddenly you have that aha moment where you go, right, yes. Okay, I see what you're saying. So yeah, no, it's not scary because someone's given you a different perspective. So fear is usually, just from my experience, it's usually a lack of a lack of understanding about what the outcome may be. So therefore you become fearful because you don't know where the situation's going to be. But I
Yeah.
guess if you've got, it's like we could say, right, there's two holiday choices. So I'm going to give you two holiday choices and maybe you tell me which one feels most right for you. The first one is a hiking holiday in the Alps. The second one is a tour of South America. So which one feels like the one that's right for you?
Yeah, well, for me, it's immediately the first one.
There we go. What made you say the first one then?
There's just a feeling of peace, actually, and upliftment in the body. It's like a strong feeling of, yeah, peace and yeah, it's just really clear. I don't have to think about it.
Right. So why not the second one?
Well, the felt sense is just a bit like it just feels intense. So that's the only way I can
Right.
describe it. Yeah.
So there's that instant your body
Mm.
responds to a situation that's been presented to you, and you kind of part of you is thinking about it cognitively, and then part of you is just sensing the feeling. And yeah, I think I would go for the. It feels safer to me. The like a hiking holiday or something in the Alps just feels like I would enjoy that. You know, like visions of Julie Andrews and The Sound of Music.
Exactly that. What
um,
went through my mind as well.
yeah, exactly. Whereas South America, I think, oh, that's just a long way to go. I don't know whether I want to be going to countries that far away.
Just doesn't sound relaxing to me.
It doesn't. It
So
just it just sounds more like a like an endurance episode or something.
yes.
Um, so
Yeah.
so again, we could go at it cognitively and we say, oh, look, culturally, it would be a wonderful place. You know, lots of history and lots of places to see, and varied climates and cultures. But then party thinks, I don't want to travel that far. I just want to be relatively close-ish to home. Um, but I kind of like the sound of that. There seems to be a familiarity and a sense of understanding that I would probably enjoy that more. So,
So it's really what we've just described then in terms of listening to the heart, it's
mm,
really a bodily experience. So it comes back to that book and that concept of the body says no.
body says no.
Mm.
What, there's a
When
book called
there's
that?
Yeah, so when there's a really strong
Okay.
feeling of an intuitive response or a heart-led response of
Yeah.
no, it's like the whole body just indicates that by, I don't know, tension, discomfort, just feels a bit no. That's the best way I can describe it. Whereas when something feels right, there's an immediate feeling of, for me anyway, excitement and joy, possibility, and it's like everything feels light in the body.
Okay. Do you think there's a connection to our higher self with there's an aspect of us that knows what the right thing to do is and we interpret it as intuition, or do you think the two things are separate, or what are your thoughts?
I would say it's all interconnected, wouldn't you? I would imagine that that perceived connection to the higher self is what feeds into the felt bodily experience. Because we're
Yeah.
more we're in the present when we're being guided by the heart and the body and the felt experience, we're in the present moment, which is much more a sense of being guided by that higher knowing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. It's just interesting to kind of see your or hear your perspective. And
What would you what would you say the differences between being led by the heart and being led by the higher self?
I think I see in my understanding, I see a resemblance. So it's almost like the higher self is like that voice within you that knows what the right thing to do is, and we may well also call it your intuitive knowing. I really feel there's a sense of it, but the heart thing is like the emotional response that you have to the situation that may well either mirror what your higher self is indicating, or it may go against it, because you may feel really drawn to doing something that in some way isn't in line with maybe what your higher self is saying. And sometimes that can just be your you're predisposed through conditioning of how you've lived your life to say yes to some things and no to other
Yeah.
things. Whereas I think it seems like the higher self is a consistent voice of reason where it always knows, like a moral compass, it always knows which direction that you need to go.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're governed by emotions, that's more fluid
Yeah.
and that could well take you in different directions. Whereas the compass will always point to true north if you're talking about your higher self. So it's like it's 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 reliable, and it's always going to take you to the way that's right, even if it's not a way that you have previously considered. I think there's an aspect of you that always knows, even when change is involved, that it is the
Yeah.
right thing to do.
So in that way, then there's so much importance if you want to be led by the higher self
Yep.
and the heart. There's
Yeah.
so much importance then in terms of quietening down the nervous system
Mm.
and bringing the body into a state of equilibrium so that you can be present and follow that heart-led
Yeah.
higher self knowing. Because if your nervous system is very activated
Mm.
and there's a lot of cortisol and adrenaline and stress, then of course that initiates strong emotions, which then make it harder to perceive that higher knowing, isn't it?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah.
I think one thing that really um, gained my curiosity a number of years ago when I don't know whether I read something or listened to someone or saw something on social media with this whole idea that the neuroreceptors that we have in our brain, the same neuroreceptors are also within our hearts, and they're also within our stomach. So it's almost like rather than have one brain or one intelligent aspect to our body, there are at least three. So it's like if we say, trust your gut instinct, because I'm not a medical expert or a psychology expert like yourself, is there in your understanding of how people think and how we, make decisions, how important is that truth that there are the thinking aspects of our body in more than just the brain?
Mm, definitely. There's so much research on, a healthy gut,
Yeah.
promotes that connection to knowing and that clarity. And yeah, I mean, our physiology is constantly interacting with that ability to see with clarity and perceive. And yeah, absolutely. And do you know, just going back to that point before, something I just had a bit of a light bulb moment.
Okay.
Often, as you know, if I'm presented with a, a choice or, needing to make decisions on something, I'll give it, a, a good amount of thought.
Mm.
But generally, I'll make the decision and I'll be really confident and I'll be like, yeah, this is it. And I'll just, generally just do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's when I'm in that state of equilibrium and that state of knowing. But then what happens and I think this happens for a lot of people, is that there starts to be the fear and the thoughts and then it's like the decision gets made and I feel confident and I'm in that higher knowing and that heart-led space.
Yeah, yeah.
But then afterwards, then the thoughts start, the nervous system gets activated, and I think that's where actually the work needs to be is sometimes we can make that decision from that place of knowing, but then it's the catch-up response of our nervous system and our mind to actually trust that that is the right thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So it's almost like you have an immediate knowing of the correct
Mm.
answer, and you could
Yeah,
just leave it there. But
yeah,
then there becomes uh, a cognitive process of then second guessing yourself. Is this
yeah,
kind of what you're saying? So you're maybe emotionally or based upon previous experience, you're then starting to have a bit of a debate about whether the right decision was actually the right decision.
mm,
And then there's a bit of a list of pros and cons. And then suddenly it's gone from being very clear and very centered to
mm.
it's gone off at a tangent. And then you're starting to debate, your choice. Is that kind of what you're saying? Do we all
Yeah,
do
I
that?
think it's when the mind gets involved.
Yeah, the
So
mind.
off yeah, so often in a state of trust and
Mm.
knowing, and it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is the right thing, brilliant, amazing. And then there's a pause and the thinking begins, the nervous system gets activated, and suddenly that trust and that knowing gets a bit depleted by the interference of the mind.
So it's so how do we get to a stage whereby that doesn't creep in? Is it realistic that that could happen or not, do you think?
I think it's realistic that it could be reduced, and it
Yeah.
it comes back to those three systems that Paul Gilbert talks about. You know, whether you're in fight or flight, whether you're in
Yeah.
um, that more dopamine on the go system, or if you're in that oxytocin care and contentment. I think the more of the time we're in that care and contentment and at ease, it's so much easier just to trust and allow and be in flow and
Mm.
listening to that inner knowing and what the body says. And so I think it's about coming back to that place, isn't it?
Yeah. I think just as I'm thinking about it and just reflecting upon it, when you're I think operating, I don't know if that's the right way of describing it, but when you're living in or operating in a state of love, and I don't mean that just in the woo-woo sense, but I mean it in the literal sense, I think you can make more clear-sighted decisions than when there's like this little voice on each shoulder that is trying to get you according to,
Yes.
different issues that you might be dealing with, getting you to either go to one side or the other rather than straightforward. So it's
Yeah.
almost like there's deliberate distractions in some way. Whereas I think when we're in this state of love, we don't see we don't see the external influences as being quite so dramatic and quite so profound
Yeah.
as when we're in a state of like disharmony where all of those issues seem to be magnified and seem to be much more important than they really are. And you
Yeah.
look back on it with hindsight and you reflect upon it and you think to yourself with that hindsight, oh, why did I get so like stressed out or you know just anxiety induced by that situation when with hindsight I can see it really wasn't the issue that I thought it was. Maybe it's when there's a lot of thinking goes on, we start to move away from just going with the flow of what feels right because it is right, and we go into a question of, oh, but what if this is wrong, and then what if this is wrong, and then what if that is wrong, and we're just going backwards and forwards. You
So
know,
we're not in the present moment then?
no, we're completely living in the past or worrying about the future. We're not in the moment
Mm.
at all.
So perhaps being led by the heart and connected to the higher knowing is really about just being fully present.
This is it, innit?
Mm,
So that would be a very Buddhist
mm,
philosophy and mindset, wouldn't it? To say,
very.
let's be in the moment. But it almost certainly is the case that to be in the present moment and to be living this moment, not to be living and worrying about the past or living and
Yeah.
worrying about the future, but to live and enjoy the moment that you're in, because it is the only moment that you can ever live.
Yeah.
I may have a wonderful day planned tomorrow, but I can't enjoy it today. I have to wait until tomorrow and then it becomes the present moment. So rather than living in the past where
Mm,
we either have anger or resentment about what has happened in the
yeah.
past, we know that we cannot change it. And we know that we cannot change the future, but we can change this present moment and how we react to it, can't we?
But sometimes, surely, using logic is going to be important with being led by the heart.
I think the two go hand in hand. We could say, let's say, for example, we lived on the African plains, okay, and we've gone back in time to, the hunter-gatherer days. If we were purely heart-led, we would say that I cannot leave the cave today because there is a very high chance that there is a lion or a leopard or something out there. So therefore, it would be too dangerous to go hunting. That's reasonable. And we could make the same inference the next day, the next day, and the next day. In fact, until we starve to death.
Yeah.
Because the logic is that it is safer to stay in sorry, not the logic. The heart is saying energetically, I know that it doesn't feel really safe to be out there every single day. And then the species is wiped out because it will never be safe enough. But logic
Mm.
says, if you understand your environment and the situation that you're in, and if you work maybe with some teamwork with other members of the tribe or the family, you can work in such a way that you can provide for yourself and you can get through the day and you can ensure your own survival by using logic and to know that maybe the animals are more active at certain times of the day or night. And maybe you can see that if they've already fed, they're not likely to be hungry again for a while. And so therefore you can use logic and also intuition or also awareness of the environment to
Yeah.
to use that intelligence. And the
Mm.
reason that we've progressed as a species is hopefully that we've gained over generations and generations, we've gained wisdom of what is right, what is wrong, what is dangerous, what is safe. But also we have that inner voice that says something doesn't quite feel right. That is not actually a rock in the distance. It is a lion. And so therefore you go, I've spotted it's a lion because that's where they like to lay down. And so I think logic has to run hand in hand because that's how we've survived as a species. I think it can't purely
Yeah.
be logical or purely intuitive. It has to be a varying degree of both, I would say.
The key to bringing both of those together then is being in a state of calm nervous system, feeling of love and care. And then it allows perhaps everything to communicate without battling each other.
Yeah, like what, like
Mhm.
a flow state.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense to me.
When would you say you were last in a flow state?
I have no idea. Um, when was I truly last in a flow state? Well, I don't know whether I can specifically say that this was me in a flow state. What I will say is in in the work that I do mediumistically, obviously I will I will work in an altered state with to connect to my spirit guides, for the purpose of allowing them to impress upon me thoughts. So it's just an internal experience, or they may wish to express themselves through trance mediumship, and therefore there's this interaction between spirit guides. Now, as I move from being conscious and awake in a fully present state, and I move into an altered state whereby I'm becoming um, very much influenced and present with the spirit world. When it comes to them sharing their thoughts and opinions in a verbal way, there are times whereby the conversation that flows through me, I seem to become a very passive observer, and I'm not in this state of questioning, this state of I'm going to say this, then I'm going to say that, then I'm going to say something else. I just seem to be in this flow where I become energetically like enmeshed with them. I become relaxed enough to allow them to influence me, and not controlling enough so that they may have the truest expression of their voice. And in those moments, time seems to have no logical
Yeah,
meaning.
no power.
It,
Yeah,
it's like I don't know whether it's been 20 minutes or 2 minutes or an hour.
yeah, yeah,
It's like I have that no awareness of my physical presence. It's like I just become everything I need to be all at once without questioning. And it seems that the flow and the ease at which it happens is, beyond what I normally experience. There is no cognition. There is just this, allow it to be. And I feel like I'm in a flow state. And there's times where I might just be thinking about something, and I very much feel their influence coming to me. And it's like I just have shifted my consciousness, and then I become aware of their thoughts and their feelings, as if you become, I don't want to use this term in a woo woo sense, but it's like you become one with them.
yeah. Well, it is, isn't it?
That was quite a
Yeah.
long answer, really. But what
Mm.
about you then? Let's put that question
Well,
to you.
it's really similar. I'd say it's when I'm teaching, particularly then I
Mm.
just become, yeah, just in a state of allowing, and I'm not overthinking anything. I'm not really planning, analyzing. I'm just in that moment, and you know, ideas or knowing what to say just is happening, and I feel in a state of trust. I feel at ease. I feel happy. And yeah, I would say that's probably the moments when I notice it most. And again, I would say I'm having that connection to whether it's, that higher guidance or those that guide us in spirit. But I would say I'm having that experience of being able to perceive that link and that at the same time. So it's yeah, it is a flow state, isn't it? And
Yeah.
sometimes, a lot of the time actually, when I'm with people that I really enjoy being in their company, it's there's a loss of time or needing to really consider or analyze or predict or think. It's just you're just being, and you're just fully immersed in that moment.
Yeah. So do you think kind of the flow state is like the ideal state, that if all things were
Mm,
possible and equal, do you think
yeah,
we should or would all be in a flow state if we were not worrying about yesterday and tomorrow, and
yeah,
we were very much in
yeah.
this sense of just today?
yeah, in the moment and being with all the senses, but not letting any one overpower another.
So it sounds almost very idealistic, but do you think it is realistic?
I don't think it's realistic to be in that state all of the time because of the very nature of being human and our
Mm,
physiology.
yeah.
But I think we can improve it. I mean, you see it all the time, don't you, with those that commit their lives to certain ways of living. You know, they're experiencing that state, you know, a lot more of the time, but never 100%.
So do we think, here's, a little bit of a random sort of musing. Do you think in the spirit world they exist in like a flow state?
Imagine so. I think they're in such a interconnected state of being, and we can't even begin to imagine what that's like because there's no longer the restriction of the physiology and the dense experience of being on this planet. So it's really hard to imagine
Mm.
what that freedom to be here, there, and everywhere and in an interconnected state, how that is.
I think the way I see it is it's like I feel like when we're human and we're living on the earth, obviously, I feel like we are just the equivalent of one raindrop or one water droplet.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think, and so therefore, we know that we could be connected to the other water droplets within a cloud, for example. And
Mm.
there are tens of billions of them, just like there are people. Well,
Yeah.
if a few billion. But,
Mm.
and so potentially we can be connected to them all, but that doesn't truly happen until we return to that ocean. And
Mm.
then there is no separation. We're all part of the same consciousness, the same ocean of understanding of
Mm.
consciousness. Whereas with when we're existing as that one water droplet, we exist
Mm.
with the potential to interact with all of the others around us, but not necessarily the compulsion to do so.
So again, then, in a way, what you're saying is the very nature of being led by the heart is about being in a state of connectedness.
It is, isn't it?
Mm.
I think what does it mean to be human is quite a profound question, really. But I think at its most fundamental, go moving aside from the biological side of to be human is to procreate, to ensure survival, your own survival. I also think if we do truly exist as not only as a physical being but as a spiritual being inhabiting a physical body, then the purpose of that is the act of and the connection to love. And I think that is it, isn't it? Because we are we are experiencing something that we can then take with us. Consciousness can become greater by that act of love, where our physicality is just merely a vehicle with which we experience life. So it is a functionary um, aspect of our existence. It's just there to carry you through life. Whereas what you really take with you isn't the material aspect of who you are, but it's your spiritual essence. It's your energetic presence.
Mm.
Um, mm, yeah,
So, in a way, we're having this experience to get closer and closer to being in that state, but in a human body.
yeah. I think again, it just keeps taking me back to these Buddhist kind of ways, and then if we think that we're looking to reach, I suppose, if you talk about nirvana, it seems to be like this way of being or this state of existence that is like beyond all
Yeah.
physical and human awareness. But it seems that it's still achievable in some way, that we still achieve this state of like complete connection and like equanimity with everything and everyone. and we see that connectedness, and that sense of we're all related is very much a Native American mindset as well. Because I think there's a saying, something like, and I'm going to butcher this in Lakota, it's like Matakwe Oyasin, and it means like all my relatives. And so the rocks and the trees and the sky and the birds and the four-legged and the two-legged, we're all interconnected. So what you do to one, you do to all.
Absolutely.
So it's having that
Very
almost a reverential understanding and appreciation for everyone around you, because in some way you are going to hurt yourself if you hurt another.
Yeah, because of the fact that there is that connection, especially once we go back to the spirit world.
Yeah, went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, didn't we?
Yeah.
I like it though.
Yeah. So how would you sum it up to end today's podcast? How would you sum up the debate between being led by the head or the heart?
I think it can be tempting to want to understand everything,
Yes.
but I think to truly make decisions with all of your potential is to open your heart to the presence of love, open your heart to intuition, open your heart to something that is inherently who you really are. Now, your life may have taken you to a place whereby you don't feel that you can open your heart fully because people have hurt you maybe once, twice, or 100 times. And it can cause you to withdraw and become insular. It can cause you to just be anticipating the next time that someone lets you down, or the next time that someone hurts your feelings, or the next time someone tries to coerce or control you in some way. But you will eventually return to love in the spirit world. So why don't you try to, is my message, why don't you try to reconnect with that if you feel disconnected? Why don't you try to do that while you're still here? And think to yourself, it is never too late to make a change.
No.
It is obvious when, as a medium, I've been communicating with loved ones. It is obvious that one of the main reasons that they wish to communicate is to say what they wish they had have said when they were here, or to do what they wish they had have done when they were here.
To help give the perspective that often we overlook because we're so immersed in the entanglement of everything we're experiencing.
Yeah. And so why be taking your last breath and then be laying there with a mind full of regrets about what you wish you had have said or we wish you had have done?
Yeah.
Why not just do it and listen to the intuitive heart aspect of you, and add it to your logical mind, and then really think to yourself, am I knowing and feeling the correct answer? And do those things both meet? So that's my thoughts. I love that conversation. So we hope you enjoy listening. We'd love for you to share our podcast with others. Okay, I know there's lots of stuff out there and lots of reasons for people to listen, but we hope it does make a difference, and we just share our experience from our own mistakes and our own successes and what we want for ourselves as much as what we want for you. So, any last thoughts before we say bye?
Enjoy your chocolate, everybody.
Enjoy your chocolate, everybody. Well, there's a real revelation, and I hope, guys, you have a wonderful Easter Sunday, and we look forward to the next podcast. Catch you soon.